Hey everybody, back again, and today we're taking some rebar and making a quadrupus. What is a quadrupus, you might ask? Well, you know an octopus has 8 legs, so a quadrupus has 4. It's just easier to do, still turns out looking pretty cool. So we're going to take this piece of 6-inch long by 1/2-inch thick rebar, and we're going to make ourselves a little quadrupus. If you guys want to try this at home, if you're a blacksmith, go ahead and grab some rebar or some round bar. Hell, you can even do it with square bar. Just grab some steel, throw it in the fire, and hammer along with me. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to upset the end of this bar. Kind of drive that steel back down on itself and fatten it up a bit. This will take a few heats, and it can be kind of a pain. It can be somewhat frustrating sometimes. Perhaps that's why it's called upsetting. That's actually not why it's called upsetting, but just a little blacksmith humor. But you can start to see it's bulking up right through this area where we're working it down into itself, so that's going to be fatter. And the reason we're doing that is this section that we're fattening up is going to be the oldest part of the octopus head. I think we've got it thick enough for what we're aiming for. Now we can start to shape it. So I'm going to switch to some other tongs so we can actually start shaping this. So this is another tool that I made a while ago. It is all out of one piece of round bar. All you have to do is make 2 folds. You bend it in half, then bend that half back on itself, and then size that to your hardy hole. Kind of take a chisel to wedge this section right here open so it fits nice and snug. And the way this works is this is a spring back here, so I can put my material in between here and get 2 radiuses that'll match when I squish down on the material. If you've looked at an octopus's head, you'll see that it's got a big bulbous area and an area that tapers off real quick underneath that bulbous area. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our spring swage or spring puller here, and it stops hopping out of my hardy hole. We're just going to swage this material down. It's going to take a couple of heats, but you can kind of see what we're getting at. Go ahead and get rid of all that patterning from the rebar on this part, and we're going to blend this upper end of the taper kind of up and into it. Now we're going to go back to working those corners down and rounding that up a little more. We've split it in half, and now we're just going to open those halves up. Back over to the anvil and start working on these legs. This is going to be the tricky part. rounding all these little buggers up. Just make sure you work all your corners down first. And we're going to round up the ends of these into a nice little round taper. Because as you know, tentacles kind of all come to a point. You're going to kind of have to get creative as to the areas you can reach to work this kind of stuff. So just work all those corners down. Try and go for a nice round shape for these tentacles. And it doesn't have to be a perfectly round tentacle. It can be a little off shape. It's not really going to make a huge difference in the final product. Creating a nice little angular taper at the end of these. And while we're doing this, kind of try and taper it towards the ends. Kind of make it fatter as it goes into the body. So now we're just going to stick it in the vise. Since we got those legs curled back out of the way. We're going to bend that neck and that body. So now that we've got that head shape established, we can go ahead and start working on facial features. We're going to have our eyes right here. So we can start working those in with a nice little punch. What we're doing is digging into the material and kind of sculpting that material down on itself. Octopuses tend to have really big, deep eye sockets. So that's what we're going to go for with these. We've got the eye sockets started, and now we're going to go ahead and do the eyes themselves inside the sockets. Now we can use our smaller chisel, or punch rather, and start knocking in the actual eyeballs themselves. We're going to use this teeny tiny little nail starter to give him his pupils. We're going to make these pupils nice and deep so they draw a lot of light when it's finished. Really draw attention to those eyes. That way it's not just the eye sockets themselves that he's got. They'll have these nice deep pupils. So now as you can see, he's got some nice eyes. We're just going to give him a nice little smiley mouth underneath that. And we're going to put that right about here. Now we're just going to lock our little buddy back in the vise and start opening those legs back up. Or those little tentacles, rather. When you're doing this, make sure you don't do it at too low of a heat, where you can rip little buddy's tentacles right off. When it's thinner stuff like this, you've got to be careful with your temperatures and make sure you're working it nice and hot to avoid stress fractures. So he's starting to get there. Since I'm a bladesmith, I've decided to do something kind of fun and give him a little sword that he's going to hold in this tentacle here. So I'm actually going to lengthen out and taper out the end of this tentacle. start scrolling that little tiny hand around. If I can find an angle that'll let me. There we go. We're just going to make a tiny little scroll here that kind of offsets. Then we can slide little buddy's sword in there. And close his tentacle up around it. Here he's going to be holding this thing up kind of high. So this is my first time making a little quadrupus. Turned out all right. I still need to wire brush him, get him cleaned up, but he's a pretty cool little guy. He's happy with his little underwater sword that he's got, even though it's all beat up just like he is. So I'm going to get this little guy wire brushed, cleaned up, so we can take a final look at him before the video's over. So here's our finished little quadrupus, octopus, little sword-wielding, under-the-sea warrior guy. This is my first time trying to make an octopus or anything like it, so I think it turned out alright. I know a few things I could have done better for next time, but yeah, if you guys want to try this out for yourself, go ahead. I by no means want to restrict you from trying things in your shop, and if you can pull it off better than me, hell, comment a picture if you can, or do a reply video and show me what you got. I was having a little bit of fun with this, tack welded that sword into his hand so that way it stays there and it's not loose at all. But yeah, my wife's been wanting me to make her a little octopus for a while, so I think she'll dig on this. This was just a for fun project, and the rebar kind of texture really adds to the effect of his tentacles, kind of makes it more believable. I do stuff like this on my channel, and I've been doing a lot of basic blacksmithing stuff, just because I'm trying to improve as a smith, because anything you can apply to art, you can apply to weapons making, and if you can make more intricate art, you can make more intricate weapons. So this has kind of been a little experiment of mine. If you like, you know what to do. Do all them things, or don't. Doesn't really matter much to me. My channel's been growing steadily, so I'm happy about that, and thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, God bless. Stay sharp out there.